Hi, I'm Chris Bergman with Horsepowerfreaks, and I'm here with JP, our engineer. JP, what do we have in front of us here?
So, Chris, what we have is two EMSs. This is our original EMS here, and this is our new one. Now I just want to talk about the evolution and what we've done to improve our current EMS. So, first off, you can see this EMS. It's a little bit short in this distance right here, and the reason why it is because if you look at it in the car, there's a big ABS unit that has to fit right here, and it's really tight, so it has to be really small. So, what we had to do is choose really small connectors like this. And the only problem we've seen with these connectors is they're not real rugged. They're kind of fragile and they like to break and stuff like that. So I wanted to show you the differences between the new connectors and what we used to use. So this is the old one here, and you know, it works okay, but in an automotive application, it's a little bit you know, if you pull hard enough, it'll just break off, and you can also see it flexes this direction like that. So since then, we upgraded our connectors to this style. Now don't keep in mind that the size isn't important, it's more or less just this tab right here. And this is a metal tab. And this actually proved to be a lot better. It's a little bit more solid connection. There is still disadvantages with this. This metal tab can just pop right off. If I can get it to come off here. Actually it goes this way, I think. There it goes. That can come off. So that's kind of a problem. The other thing is these connectors, if they're not installed properly, they can be one pin off and they can install like that. So,
and what happens?
So yeah, and if that's installed improperly, the problem is you can fry your ECU. The other thing is when this EMS is installed in the car, it's mounted like this. So you have to reach down in there and kind of like figure out, unless you're using a mirror, you have to kind of figure out where it goes in. And some people will just jam it in there and figure, oh, it seems like it's going in. So we've now moved on to this connector. It's a Molex connector. And the cool thing about this connector is it's got keyways in it, so you can't possibly pin it off any way. It has to go on one way. And it's got all this extra material on these sides too. So I mean, it's the other thing is once it's in with these the contacts in here, it's a solid connection. So I mean, once we have this installed with wires, you can't. I mean, it's like a big struggle to get it off. So no longer do you have to zip tie your connectors onto your EMS with this new EMS.
Oh, the other thing that I noticed is really cool here is now we've given the ability for ourselves to simply plug into the EMS.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a feature for the end user, but it is certainly for us with all the turbo kits that we do nowadays. Myself, and the techs that sometimes tune. You know, it's so easy for us to just boom, connect right to it. We don't have to worry about making any jumper harnesses to connect to the ECU.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the battery capability that you provide.
Yeah. So the other thing is a lot of times we have customers who have problems, and you know our service department's always trying to look for better ways to improve. And one of the things that we can do is we can have them now send their ECUs back in, and I can look at all the data logs, you know, for the last half an hour of them driving it. And the way that I'm doing that is we're supplying on our new bracket a little 9-volt battery that sits beside it, and so all they have to do is they talk to Chris K, who is our current service customer service tech right now. Chris K can say, hey, all you need to do, go out, do whatever problem you're having, you know, try to get it to reoccur, and then make sure it happens within a certain time. You can't do it like 2 hours beforehand. You got to do it right then. You send the whole ECU in with the 9-volt battery still hooked up. I get it. I can download it, and I can see exactly what the problem is. If it's a spark blowout problem or injector or something like that sticking. And
that's huge because in the field, when we have a customer might have a map sensor go bad, or they might put in the wrong fuel or something else, and we just have no idea.
Right.
But now, I mean, with the old EMS, they'd send this to us, but it didn't have a battery backup in it, so we would lose what the customer did. If we could plug in directly to that, we could have.
Absolutely, yeah.
But now with this new one, they can actually send it to us. And we have customers in Beirut, Lebanon, and Turkey, and all around the world. That's kind of difficult. So
yeah.
So I'm really excited about this new feature.
Yeah. Another cool feature I wanted to add about it is when we first designed this turbo kit, we didn't figure that we'd have all these kits and stuff like that. And in stage 2.5, which is probably our most popular kit right now, because of how the boost strategy is controlled and stuff like that, it forces us to make a separate harness specifically for the stage 2.5. And we also have always had the same thing where SMG models versus manual tranny models, they need separate harnesses. So it just makes it a pain if someone's maybe selling their kit to somebody else, or if they're upgrading, you know, we have to have them send theirs back in, we have to modify it or whatever. But the cool thing now, what we did with this new EMS, when it's opened up here, is there's two jumpers right here. There's a jumper here and a jumper here. These just jump these two pins together, and it basically makes it so the hardware is controlled through the ECU rather than in the actual harness itself. So you just boom, move these two pins, and it'll make it SMG dependent, or make it stage 2.5 dependent, or whatever you want. So that's kind of a cool feature as well.
And now you don't have to modify the harness anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's always a case of, you know, maybe we ship out a wrong harness or something. You never want that, you know. So it's easier. We can label it and say, hey, this has been modified for stage 2.5 or stage 3 with an SMG. It's all documented. It's pretty easy.
All right, let's take a look and see how that harness plugs into this.
Okay, yeah. So the new harness we have with the new Molex connectors. Like I said before, this is a pretty solid connection here. This is our whole main harness that comes with the kit. And so you see it says all of these flying leads that go to all sorts of connectors and stuff. But anyways, these are the two main connectors. And what they do is actually go in like so. I think this one goes on this side.
And I noticed there's a different number of pins on each of those connectors. So there's no way they could put it in the wrong hole.
Absolutely, you cannot. This is a there's a 20 pin connector, a 22, and a 24. So you can't screw it up this time. And Chris, you want to try to take that off? See, it's a little bit more difficult than they used to be.
Yeah, those are in there. Holy cow! They are hard to get out. Yeah, so they aren't falling out.
And you know, they won't break. They're much thicker in the wall thickness of the plastic they used. The last cool feature that I wanted to say that this EMS has that our previous one did not is the addition of an auxiliary harness that will have a display. So this is just a plastic wrapper prototype mold, but essentially, if you can imagine this being metal, it's not done yet, but it will be soon enough. This will mount to your. This also comes with a kit, by the way. This is our gauges. Our I don't know what I'm gonna call it.
Pillar pod.
Pillar pod. There you go. Or no, it's not pillar pod because it doesn't mount on the pillar. But anyway, this just screws right down here, and what it is there's a bunch of LEDs right here, and this is actually RPM dependent. So it's kind of like a shift light, and then you actually have a couple other little warning lights. One's for your race switch, so when you switch into race gas mode, or if you go into pump mode. And then there's also a warning light here for coolant temperature, and there's a third one for if I can remember.
That's somebody with air fuel.
Oh yeah, air fuel ratio warning light. So anytime you have, you know, your air fuel ratio is above, let's say 13, and I have it all programmed in the ECU. So if your air fuel ratio is above, let's say 13:1, and you're above 10 pounds of boost, like here's a warning light to say that's not right. And so the cool thing about the ECU, what I was getting at, is this is just going to have a harness that comes out of the bottom and then goes right to this third connector right here. So if somebody wants to upgrade with this little cool cage display, they just buy a harness, it goes right to here, and there's just like one other little connection. That's it. It's pretty plug and play.
That's nice. I really like the idea of that air fuel warning light. I mean, how many systems have a light come on if you're, and a lot of times if a fuel pump fails and your car's, or even if it doesn't work at 100%, your car could go lean. And so that light could save your engine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and there's, of course, there's other safety features in the ECU as well we might want to add is, you know, it does have the normal knock control and stuff like that many standalones do have, but it also has a knock siren.
And what happens in that
So
case?
a knock siren is basically anytime the knock sensor picks up any voltages that I specify above a threshold, then it basically gives you a little chirp and tells you, hey, you got the wrong octane in the car or whatever.
It's not really a little chirp anymore, is it?
Well, that's true. We actually, the original ones did come with like a 100 decibel siren. Now they come with a 110 decibel siren. So okay. It's pretty loud. You'll hear it even with the radio on going 100 miles an hour.
Okay. So why don't we talk about methanol and how that works with all of this?
Yeah, so we've got a methanol system as well in our kits. It's part of our stage 2 package. It's also included with 2.5, 3, and stage 4. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You got your pump. You got your pump here. You got a methanol filter. You got a pressure sensor on the back side, and you've got a couple relays and a couple fuses. One for the pump, one for the solenoid nozzle.
Now this comes already pre-assembled.
And yeah, exactly. All the stuff from Horsepowerfreaks always comes pre-assembled for the most part. We do it all here. That way there's no problems with people calling in and trying to figure out how it all goes together because there's a lot of components on it.
So really, you just, to hook up methanol, you plug in your harness right here, which is this harness, and then this end plugs into your main harness, right?
Kind of, yeah. This one goes to the solenoid. You know, this one goes to this main part, and then this one will go to your jumper box, which is basically a little jumper box that is a plug and play for the factory harness. So it kind of integrates into the system at that point.
Now, where is the sender or the pressure sensor on this thing?
Pressure sensor is on the back side right here. And so the way that the pressure sensor works in our methanol system is we've got it programmed so there's a window, I guess you would call it. So as long as the pressure is within this window that I set, then everything will be okay. You give it high boost, you give it more timing, you know, you pull back the fuel in the primary injectors and so forth. So anytime it's outside of this range, let's say it's at it's a 5-volt sensor. So anytime, let's say it's above, let's say 4 volts or below, let's say 2 volts, then boom, no boost, no high boost, no additional timing, and it keeps all of the fuel in the primaries.
And you've tested that. Some pretty crazy tests.
Yeah, it's
Tell them about what John did.
Yeah, well, actually, you wanted me to essentially do stuff on the dyno where, you know, we just unplug a fuse or something like that, replicating like a blown fuse, and I mean, instantly the boost just drops and it goes into safe mode. Never had any problems with it ever.
And then we had John with a methanol tank, shaking it while you're right in the middle of the pull to simulate it going in and out.
There's never ever a problem with that. The way that works is flawless if you have a leak or something like that. Now, it could piss you off. You know, you might have a leak, actual leak somewhere, and you have to go in there and find the leak. But at least it's going to a safe mode. You know, you might be driving and say, why am I not getting full boost? Well, it's telling you there's a problem. So, gotta fix it.
And there is a new methanol gauge that you can buy too that will actually tell you the methanol flow.
Right, yeah. So basically you got two things, pressure and flow. We're already doing pressure right here, and then the gauge will just basically show your flow. So it's not a guessing game. You know, if the flow is in, let's say, 1,000 cc's or it's down to 200, there's something wrong. Another thing we did with the fittings, they're all now a nickel-plated brass. They used to be plastic. That's the only reason why we didn't use nickel-plated brass before is they weren't available. But
so
now
these fittings here, right?
Yeah, these instant tube fittings right here are kind of they're starting to show up in a lot of automotive applications. Even BMW uses it for their SMG. But I'm starting to see a lot of they use all different types of material depending on if it's for, you know, let's say methanol, ethanol, gasoline, that requires a different style O-ring, let's say Viton versus Buna N or something like that. So, you know, we're always up to date on all the stuff that comes out, and anytime we see something that we can improve the kit, we will do it.
And so, quite simply, to hook up your methanol line, you just push the hose in here, and it just...
Yeah, yeah, the way that hooks it up, you can actually keep these red clips on. I bet you a lot of people will probably take them off, but you can actually keep the red clips on and you just push it straight in. Now, to take it off, you have to take these red clips off because you have to pull this thing out to get the connection off. So, it's pretty straightforward. We never really had any problems
The nice thing about these clamps is they actually grip from the outside. Right. So, if you... A lot of times when you have a fitting that is like this and you're going to use a hose on, the nipple sits inside the hose, which reduces the internal diameter. And here we've noticed, you know, you need, we do a few things different with our methanol system. Is we put the pump in the front and we put the canister in the pump, or the container in the front as well. So as soon as that pump comes on, there's very little line to pressurize.
Absolutely.
And we have big thick line too, so it allows the car to get methanol right away.
Right.
So let's talk about some of the other features. One thing we haven't talked about yet is traction control.
Oh yeah, so I guess it didn't take us too long to figure out these cars need traction control somehow. The bad thing of, I guess the disadvantage, the way that BMW does traction control on these cars is they use the throttle to take away power, where that will slow the car down, but if you're racing and stuff like that, you don't necessarily want the power to be turned off that quickly and for that long of a time. So basically the way we do it, you don't run the BMW traction control at all, you just turn that off, and then we supply this with a kit. It's a kit that can bolt onto any of our stages. Let me see if I can find, there's a connector somewhere. It should be on this side. Oh, actually, well, yeah, vehicle speed. So you basically, there's a vehicle speed hookup for it, and then there's also a connector on this side for traction control as well. Right there, TC module. So this all just connects together, and it comes with this little, basically a potentiometer, and it shows you different settings. So you've got off, race mode, sport, street, and rain mode. And they're just different settings depending on what you're trying to do. So obviously, you know, if you got slicks or something like that, you're at the racetrack, you would definitely be in race mode. If you're in the rain or the snow, I don't know why you'd ever be in the snow in an M3.
Actually, I had a customer call me this weekend that was driving it in the snow. He said he had DSC on, and his car was all over the place. So he turned his BMW traction control on, put this in rain, and he said he could go 40, 50 miles an hour non-stop through
yeah,
the
I mean,
snow
you could basically, I mean, I'm not recommending it, but you could floor it and you'd still maintain traction. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be going as fast as when it was dry pavement, but it's just taking power back, and it does that with ignition timing rather than by the throttle cut. So you don't feel it. You might hear it a little bit, but you don't feel a sudden jerk down like power's, you know, like the throttle's closed, and then you get the certain surge back. It's very smooth and very linear power curve, even with traction control activated. So yeah, that's one of the features we have now. It's available in all the stages, like I said, 1 through 4. We also have a methanol switch you can add as well if you want, and that was something that we didn't, you know, initially we just thought everyone would want methanol all the time, but people started saying, hey, you know, I just want to drive it. I don't want to drive it that aggressively. let's have it so I can have it off sometimes too. You know, if there are
I actually really like that methanol switch. When I drive the big power cars like our 2.5, 3s, and 4s, I love having this switch because I'll drive it with it off all the time. Cause there's just so much power on pump gas. I mean, you'll be sideways at, especially a new customer car that hasn't realized he needs tires yet, and you're driving around on factory tires. You need that off because when you turn that on and you have 800 wheel or whatever. That's a little crazy.
Yeah, even though our slogan is there's no such thing as too much horsepower, sometimes there is. I mean, you know, on the street, sometimes there's too much. You know, especially if you're driving around your parents or your girlfriend or something like that, they don't necessarily want all that. You know. So yeah, that's a really good feature, and I think I recommend it to everybody.
And most people mount. You can either mount this underneath your dash, which is cool because if you valet park your car or something, you know, nobody's gonna know it's there. You just kind of feel around for it, or you can just put it in the center console where a lot of people do.
Yeah, again, plug and play. You don't have to wire anything up. It's a simple connection right to the jumper box.
Something you can do afterwards. You think about it too with that, how easy that is. You just take the bumper off, you bolt it up, plug it in, plug the connections on, and you're good to go. It's a really nice feature.